Protests in Iran have continued for a third week over the country's economic situation. Sources tell CBS News that at least 12,000 people have died during the protests. More than 10,000 have been arrested, according to the nonprofit human rights activist news agency. This is the largest level of public unrest since protests in 2022 over the death of a 22-year-old arrested by Iran's morality police. The recent protests started with a group typically loyal to the regime, the Bazaris, Iranian merchants and shop owners who were upset with the country's economic policies. They're credited with helping the Islamic Revolution succeed in 1979 by giving the rebels a financial backbone and have remained a core constituency. Over the last few weeks, they've been in the streets protesting and closing up their shops across the country. The merchants have united with student groups who were key figures in past demonstrations, including the student protests of 1999, the Green Movement in 2009, and the Women Life Freedom Movement in 2022. Demonstrations have taken place at universities across the country, and teachers all over Iran have signed a letter standing with the protesters. Iran's ethnic minorities, specifically the Kurds and the Balochs, have also joined the protests. They've long advocated for more rights and a stronger voice in Iran's government. Merchants in Kurdish cities closed their shops in solidarity with striking Bazaris in other parts of Iran. And also, there are the monarchists who would like to see Iran return to having a Shah instead of a theocracy. They support Reza Pahlavi, the last Shah's heir. Pahlavi released statements supporting the protests, calling activists, quote, brave patriots. He's also advocated for nonviolent action, such as a nationwide chant of anti-regime slogans. During an interview on Monday with CBS News' Norah O'Donnell, he urged President Trump to take actions against Iran's regime before more protesters die. Elisa Ewers joins us now. She's the director of the Middle East Security Program at the Center for a New American Security. Thank you for being here. President Trump said last week if he intervenes, there will not be boots on the ground in Iran. What are the most realistic options he could pursue?
Thank you for having me. And I think the key question in all of these deliberations on intervention is what would the objective be and how would they impact what is happening on the ground? So this administration has already taken some non-military steps. They've announced tariffs on countries that trade with the Iranian regime. They could do more to support the protesters, including finding ways to make sure that they can circumvent the information blackout. But military intervention is unlikely to be prolonged and boots on the ground. It is likely, if the president makes the decision, to target the security forces of the regime. And that could cause some pain, but it could also reinforce the security forces' commitment to use violence against these protesters. So the answer to the impact question on military intervention is a little bit more difficult to answer.
Well, Iran's exiled crown prince told CBS's Norah O'Donnell that he wants the U.S. to intervene, quote, so this regime finally collapses. What happens to Iran if the current leadership fails?
Well, these protests are so different from what we've seen in the past in terms of size, demographic. As you already noted, they build on the protests of the Women Life Freedom protests of just a couple of years ago. But we really don't think that this regime is going to go down without a fight. So what comes next is a lot of questions. How will the protests organize themselves politically? Can they galvanize around a central political figure? What happens to this very massive security apparatus that has had control over the country as an arm of the regime for decades? There are a lot of unknowns here, so it's likely to be a long and difficult process.
Do you see Israel playing a role here?
You know, the perennial question over the years has always been, can outside actors tip the balance of what happens inside of Iran? And clearly, this regime has been weakened by the steps that Israel and the U.S. has taken over the last year militarily. But whether it's enough to act from the outside and whether now is the moment to tip that balance, I think that comes with a lot of risk. And ultimately, what comes next is going to be sustainable if it's driven by Iranians themselves.
Elisa Ewers, thank you.
Thank you.